for the Viking Age, along with a variety of other websites, along with my co host, the managing editor of the Viking Age, Adam Patrick. And Adam, I, for one, am glad to be here tonight because after what the Wild did to me, I am just happy to talk about a team that never lets us down. Um, I'm happy to be here. How about you?
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Always nice to talk Vikings even when there's not a lot going on. And yeah, it's probably a nice change of pace for you and other Minnesota fans that have been disappointed during the last few weeks when it comes to playoffs and in Minnesota sports. But now you got the Twins to think about, and then the optimism surrounding the Vikings until October comes around and their world starts to spiral as well. So right now the Vikings are here to save people. Okay,
Well, sir, we got the Twins. I mean, their superstar outfielder has the knees of a 70-year-old, apparently.
it's got
So
Sam
that's
Bradford's knees.
he's got Sam Bradford's knees. It is not looking great. So basically, when you say, well, you got the Twins to look forward to, we all know how that's going to end up because the Yankees are like 23-9 right now. So they'll probably get the Yankees, get swept, and continue the longest postseason losing streak in the history of North
Just
American sports.
just one win.
But
That's all I need, right? Come on, just get one.
just one.
One win.
Just one before I die.
Just one
It's
playoff
totally different
win.
for the Twins than it is the Vikings. The Timberwolves have more playoff wins in the past
Uh-huh.
18 years than the Twins do. Like
Uh-huh.
that is something else.
Mhm.
But let's dive into it. Enough about Minnesota sports misery. We can hold off for another couple months when that comes to the Vikings. But Pro Football Focus has graded everybody's offseason, which means they have graded the Vikings. And before we get into what they said, let's recap the offseason just in case you've been living under a rock. The Vikings fired Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman. They replaced them with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell. They extended Kirk Cousins and restructured several veterans, kicking a lot of money down the road. They brought in Zadarius Smith and Harrison Phillips in free agency. They brought in competition at the guard position, including Chris Reed and Jesse Davis. They made two trades within their division during the NFL draft, selected Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth Jr. as their top two picks. And if you want to throw Ed Ingram and Brian Asamoah in there, they're both important as well. So, with all of that in mind, what did Pro Football Focus think? Well, when it came to free agency, they gave them a grade of below average. Their draft grade was a B, but their overall grade was a C plus. Adam, we'll start here. Do you agree with Pro Football Focus's grades?
Uh, I like the draft grade. I think B more like as we get further away from the draft, I feel like they had a pretty good draft as far as getting a handful of picks within the first few rounds, unlike past drafts where the Vikings would get a handful of picks in the final few rounds. So I would rather have those picks come in the first few than the last few. As far as it's the C plus for, was it free agency or just the entire offseason? I think entire offseason, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
that would mean that they graded their free agency. So they gave them a B in the draft. Free agency is probably around like a D plus or a C minus. If they're giving them a C plus for the whole offseason, which I kind of would agree because they're just kind of running it back with the
Mm-hmm.
same roster that Rick Spielman built, who they fired. So, it's a little confusing because they yes, they signed free agents. They signed Zadarius Smith. They signed Harrison Phillips. But, like, none of the free agents they signed were, like, significant additions. Like, sure, Zadarius Smith he can make a big difference in the pass rush, but, like Chris Reed, like, is he gonna step in? Like, he's never been, like, a Pro Bowl guard or all-pro guard. He's one of the same kinda guards that the Vikings have had all the time. And we're just hoping that he's better than Ali Udo or better than Drew Samia or better than Garrett Bradbury, which is a very low bar to clear. So I tend to agree. I would maybe give them a B minus. I might give them a B minus, but C plus I'm not gonna really argue with. I think it's fine. It's fine.
I think it falls in line with everything this team has done this offseason. It's above average because I feel like that's what this team is striving for.
Mhm,
And now they could say they're looking for a Super Bowl, which of course they are. I mean, they want to win a Super Bowl, right? But I mean, everything they've done is to extend the life of an above average team. And I think,
mhm,
last year, I think the Vikings underachieved a little bit with everything that was going on behind the scenes with the COVID
mhm.
shots, Mike Zimmer not really being happy, holding the third round hostage,
He wasn't happy?
everything there. Oh, wait, what's that?
I said Mike Zimmer wasn't happy? What are you talking about?
No, not at all. He
You're
looked
so
like the
jealous.
happiest guy in the room. He's just so warm and friendly with the media. But I mean, I just think it's an overall disappointment for Viking fans
Mhm,
because I think when Quasi and KOC came aboard, everybody's like, all right, new regime, let's go. Let's turn over a new leaf. Let's burn this thing to the ground, a lot like what Chicago is doing. Or
mhm,
like I've alluded to, the perfect offseason for the Vikings would have been what Philadelphia did, where they kind of looked and they said,
mhm.
okay, we're rebuilding here, but let's see what move can put us over the top right now. So they trade a first round pick, they get AJ Brown, and they set themselves up for next year. If there's a quarterback that's unhappy, Philadelphia suddenly is an intriguing destination. Or if they find themselves with the Saints pick in the Saints crater, they can take one of the top quarterbacks in the draft and suddenly they are in the rookie quarterback window. Like the Vikings didn't do anything to set them up for the future. It's an all or nothing 20 what year is it? 2022. They all run together because it's the same thing. It's the same goal. It's let's get in
Mhm.
the playoffs and let's get hot and see what happens. And I think Kevin O'Connell's going to have a different approach to getting there than Mike Zimmer did. But I just think that the Vikings right now are just going down the same path. And I think that's why their grade has been a little bit lower.
Do you think, any of the moves made by well, like, I guess not necessarily moves, but some of the players that the Packers lost might have impacted some of the Vikings' decisions this offseason? Like, they lose Devontae Adams, they lose Adarius Smith, they lost a couple other people too. Um, and the Vikings are like, "Oh, maybe we can, this will be the year we can overtake them. So let's try and keep the same guys that we have that hasn't worked for the last 4 years. But let's see if they can work this time and we can overtake the Packers even if it means like we finish like 10-7 and we win the division." Like do you think that is something that might have impacted their decisions this offseason?
I want to say yes because I think the owners are pulling the strings here.
Yeah.
Because the Vikings put out a video about the war room and what it was like during the draft and everything else, and they didn't
That's
get too
pretty
much
good.
into the Detroit trade. Yeah, VEN does wonderful work
Yeah,
actually when it comes to those documentaries
it
and
was good.
everything.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, overall across the board, I shouldn't say it's just the documentaries,
Oh,
but
yeah.
um, the documentaries are great stuff, and that's always interesting to me. But like Ziggy and Mark Wilf are sitting there in front row, just kind of like,
Like,
"Yay, this is
well,
fun! I'm in the war room,
and
yay!"
they
But
were like "What's going on? Why are you doing that? Why are you trading your picks?" And they had to, like, explain to them, like, why it's a good thing that they're trading and everything. So, yeah, you can see a little bit of the, like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" So I'm sure there's been a
collaboration,
lot
baby.
I'm sure there's been a lot of that this offseason, and, I'm sure there's a lot that we haven't seen that's kinda similar to that, but yeah. Uh, it's funny that you mentioned the Bears because I think the Lions are doing something similar too, where they're setting themselves up for a team for next year to, like you said, get a quarterback who might be disgruntled, like a Kyler Murray or something, and then or draft a quarterback, and then they'll be ready to roll. So it's kind of I don't know. I guess it's kind of disappointing that the Vikings aren't taking a similar approach because I feel like they're a better run organization than the Lions.
Mhm.
But maybe it'll take some rude awakening to kinda open the eyes of the people above Quasido Fomensa and Kevin O'Connell to kinda be like, "Hey, we need to take a step back or 2 to kinda move forward." So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And it could work. I mean, I'm not totally
Oh, yeah.
against what they did. It's like I said, it's just disappointing. I feel like this is a window to really position yourself in the NFC. And they could still do it. They could still win the North. We'll kind of talk a little bit more about this later in the show, but it just, you have all these guys that are over the age of 30 and you're bending over backwards to keep them around. And I mean, getting back to the Wolves, I feel like they kind of did the same thing where it was just like, yeah, we need to keep Adam Thielen here. We need to keep all these guys here. You got to make a big free agent splash. Like, they're trying to be Jerry Jones without actually having like the Jerry Jones persona. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, it's like we don't have Jerry Jones, or no, we can't get. I botched the joke, but uh,
We've
we
got Jerry
can't
Jones at
get
home.
Jerry Jones. We have Jerry Jones at home. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
that at this point, and it's
Mhm,
almost annoying. Like, I'm
mhm.
sorry. I know. Well, in
No,
the
it is.
negative, whatever. No, no, no. Like, it's borderline annoying to see the owners just kind of try and make up for lost time because they bought a soccer team. You know.
Yeah,
So
I think the best I think you look around the league and the best owners are the ones that aren't really involved, or the best teams are the ones that have the owners that aren't really involved, like the Patriots. Like Bob Kraft has his say or whatever, but he doesn't really do he's not gonna involve himself in personnel decisions. Same thing with a team like the Steelers, who have always been good. You know, I mean, you can't say the Packers because they have, 100,000 owners. Um, so that doesn't really count.
with their sheet of paper, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of good teams around the NFL, like their owners are just kind of like, okay, we'll give you the resources, but you guys are the football guys. Like Ziggy and Mark Wilf were not football guys when they bought the team. Those weren't their qualifications. Their qualifications were because they had enough money in their bank account to buy the Vikings. So sometimes I feel like they might need a little, like, hey, this is like we're gonna do what we do good and you do what you do good. Sometimes, you own a team and you want them to do well and you think, you've seen things over the years 'cause they've been owners for what, like 15 years around that. So they've seen things and like, oh well, we did this and then, this back then, maybe we should try something similar to that. And you go back and you're like, well, how successful have your teams been uh since you've been owner? Because they haven't been very successful. They've been okay, they haven't been terrible, but they haven't been very good very often, so, uh, I would like them to take a little bit of a step back, but we will see. They probably will.
Some of the other notable trades in this, the Ravens, Bengals, Broncos, and Chargers all got A for their off seasons.
The
In
Bengals?
the NFC North, the Lions an A minus, the Packers got a B minus, and the Bears got a C. Nobody in the league got lower than a C minus, which makes sense when you think about it because I don't think anybody totally like set their franchise on fire this offseason.
Yeah,
Like
you
the
just don't
Texans
know
did 2
too.
years ago, you know?
Yeah,
But
you just don't know too, like, some of these like Christian Kirk, that could prove to be a very good move that the Jaguars gave him a bunch of money and he turns out to be really good, so we just don't know.
our second topic today, ESPN has dropped their latest power rankings. And ESPN, as you saw in our lead, is very negative. They get this, Adam. They don't have the Vikings in the top 5.
No,
They don't have them in the top 10 either.
no,
They don't even have them in the top 20.
no.
Like, that is negative. So negative. But they have them
Yeah,
23rd coming into this season. They dropped
good.
2 spots from their post free agency rankings. How offended are you? Because I am furious.
Um they didn't really I looked at these, they don't really have an explanation for why they're 23rd, and, they just because they each time they do these power rankings, they have, like, a different activity, or, like, a different writing exercise for each of their reporters, and this power rankings was, like, which players benefited the most from what these teams did in the draft, and I think Kevin Seifert, who covers the Vikings now for ESPN, picked CJ Ham, um, as the beneficiary because the Vikings drafted like a tight end in the 7th round, didn't draft a fullback. So, that must mean good things for him, even though the Rams offense last year doesn't really utilize a fullback. So I'm not sure how he benefited from that. Um, But 23rd, yeah, like, I think they had the Commanders ahead of the Vikings, the Saints were ahead of the Vikings, and then some other teams ahead of them you could argue, but 23rd seems a little low, like, only 9 teams are worse than the Vikings right now. I would maybe put them, I don't know, 8, 17, 18 at the lowest. But 23rd seems a little low. Maybe we're nitpicking here, but I think just like it's just a team that's only won fewer than 8 games once in the last 4 seasons, and they bring back, a very similar group to what they had at least last year. I think 23rd is just a little too low. Uh, and we'll see if it's right. Hopefully it's wrong. But if it's not, that means they get like the number 10 pick. So it could maybe it's good.
Then they could take like a nose tackle or something there, maybe another corner. I
A
don't
linebacker.
know. Don't need a quarterback. That's for sure, I guess. um Yeah, what's interesting is they dropped 2 spots after the draft, and I don't know if that's because of what other teams did in the draft. I don't know who was below them. I don't think Detroit was above them in the power rankings, so it's not like they leapfrogged them. I didn't see the post free agency one, so I can't pretend to really
Right.
have a take there. But I mean, I think that draft is so polarizing that people either really like what they did or they absolutely hate it and go, "Why are you trading with the Packers?"
For sure.
Um, I just it's so weird because I think a lot of people see the same things that we kind of see, and it comes off as negative, but it's the reality of it. Like I said, you have several players that are over the age of 30 or maybe even pushing the 30s, like Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith. Um, you know, I was going to say Anthony Barr, but he's not on the team. Patrick Peterson, that's another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have all these players who are getting older, and like the Vikings didn't really do anything except for add pieces that can help them win in 2022 with Lewis Seen and Andrew Booth Jr., which are players they needed. But it also seemed like, okay, what is your plan for beyond 2023, 2024? Like, are you just going to roll out Kirk Cousins till he's 40? Are you going to just assume Dalvin Cook is going to be the exception to the rule where running backs don't explode after the age of 26? Like, what is your long-term plan here? And maybe we'll see it once they hit the field with Kevin O'Connell. Maybe he just unleashes Justin Jefferson to some new dimension that we're not even aware of. It just feels like a flat team that has to go out and prove it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you asked about like I don't know who was ranked ahead of him before, but I just looked it up. The Commanders in the last power ranking, the Commanders were 22nd, and the Saints were 23rd, and the Vikings were 21st. So they kind of like flip flopped a bunch of those. So
Mm.
they were 21st in the last power ranking, which means I guess the Saints and Commanders had better drafts than the Vikings. I mean, the Saints, what did they have? 4 picks, but they had 2 first rounders. Yeah, Chris Olave and that offensive tackle, and the Commanders got Jahan Dotson and Sam Howell. So I guess they liked what they did better. I didn't think that was enough for the Vikings to fall 2 spots, but apparently ESPN thinks different. Like this would have been so much better. Just explain why. That's why we need this.
Yeah.
Like why can't you just explain why each team is where they are?
But let me tell you
But
about
yeah.
CJ Ham because he's from
Uh,
Minnesota. Did you know
yeah,
he's
yeah.
from Minnesota too? He's actually from Duluth. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know if you
wow.
knew.
The trading
Yeah.
company?
I don't think they're based out of there. But Duluth's probably one of my favorite Minnesota cities, though. You
Yeah.
got the bridge. It's got a name. I don't know what it is, but like the boats go under it. You got grandmas up there.
A
You got Lake
bridge that
Superior.
with boats go under, wow, in Minnesota?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot more exciting than it looks. Like Jesus.
There's a
But
lake in
seeing
Minnesota?
Lake Superior thing, but you can't actually go in it. You'll freeze to death. But
Yeah.
you know,
Well, in Minnesota, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, especially when
But
it's right next to Canada. But
yeah.
yeah. I mean, like that's the other thing. It's like we talk about like getting excited for this team. We talk about everything that we should be looking forward to, and like we're reading things like, well, the draft really helped the fullback because they're gonna put them in motion and stuff. Like I like this in 2 ways. Like one, I guess I like this and I hate this. That's what I'm saying. I like this in that, okay, CJ Ham, actually a good football player. For all the times that I
Yeah.
rag on him, he is a good football player and he's versatile. Maybe Kevin O'Connell sees him as like an H-back, like an Owen Daniels, Chris Cooley type, kind of that throwback where you could put him at
Yeah.
fullback, you can put him at tight end, you can move him all over. Illusion of complexity, which sounds like something from Prestige Worldwide. But the other part is, why is the fullback the big winner? Shouldn't it be like Kirk Cousins because you got him a guard? Shouldn't it be like the defense because you drafted 2 members of the secondary? Like, it just seems weird that we're still fixated on a fullback in a league that really isn't a big fan of fullbacks.
Yeah, and let's see. He's getting paid. CJ Ham is going to make 2.7 million this year with a cap hit of 3.45 million, and he's probably going to get around 10 to 15 snaps a game if they keep it.
With 5
That doesn't
receptions from Kirk Cousins, probably, but yeah.
that yeah that that doesn't seem like a wise way to invest your money. I know people love CJ Ham. I know that the owners probably
He's from
feel very
Minnesota,
similar.
Adam.
Right. Well, and he's just a
Yes.
good guy too. Uh,
Yes, very.
so like I know these decisions like to get rid of people that don't fit your offense are hard to make, but when you come from a team that doesn't even I don't even think the Rams had a fullback on their roster last year. Um, but it's just like we can't just keep guys because they're nice or they're from Minnesota or they don't, they're okay. Like we need this regime to come in and like they're not attached to anybody. Like take no prisoner. I'm sorry, this is how it goes. We're building a Super Bowl winning team, and if you're not part of our plan, then you need to be gone. So that's like, but I feel like that hasn't been the approach. It's been like, oh well, he's nice, or like we will love him. He's one of us, so we got to keep him. And it's like, no, that's not how you build a winner, like a really good, successful team. That's not how you build a winner. You get everyone who is the exact right fit for your team, like regardless of where they're from, how nice they are. Like just you got to make tough decisions. And I think CJ Ham's still in danger of making the roster for the Vikings. So I wouldn't even put like I was kind of surprised that ESPN put him as like the most beneficial or like biggest beneficiary of this draft because I'm like, are we sure he's even making the team? Because he's a fullback and they don't really need a fullback. So I don't know.
Lewis Seen apparently is learning the names of all the lunch ladies in the or lunch ladies, lunch men. There's
Hmm.
probably both of them in the
Cafeteria workers,
cafeteria. Yeah. People in the hallway, everything else, like just trying to get to know people, trying to be friendly. The anti-Zimmer. It's
defensive rookie of the year, right there. There you go.
yeah. Yeah, because
Give
he's
him
nice.
give him the
I don't
trophy.
know if opposing players are gonna think he's nice when he's like taking their head off up the middle of the
Yeah,
field, but
he's like he's like Andrew Sandejo, but way better. Like he
I'll say
actually
this
pays attention.
I'll say this about the Ham thing though too. You mentioned that the Rams didn't have a fullback last year, and I think
Yeah.
everybody's like fixated on the Rams because Sean McVay and everything else.
Yeah.
What if Kevin O'Connell's just a guy with adjustments? Like Mike
Yeah.
Zimmer, square peg, round hole, basically. If you didn't fit his scheme or whatever, he wasn't going to help you. If you can't play cover two, or I mean, if you can't play man to man, I should say, we're not going to cover two unless it's absolutely necessary, like the 2020 team. Like
Mhm.
if you can't figure out who to block, Wyatt Davis, you're not playing the entire season. I feel like Kevin O'Connell is going to adapt to people's strengths. And that's why I don't think that Mike Zimmer would have drafted a player like Lewis Seen because
No.
he's kind of seen as this hybrid between safety and linebacker. And I don't think he would have adapted that. Like positionless football is
Yeah.
like a whole nother galaxy brain thing for him. Although, like, we had a positionless offensive line the past 3 years, switching people from guard to tackle, tackle to guard, and everything else. But
Oh, you've played
I
center? You
mean,
you can play offensive tackle.
played center, you could play fullback.
Yeah,
Dodge a
yeah.
wrench, dodge a ball, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
shoot.
that's hilarious.
I
I totally agree
I
with
I
that.
mean, I think that's one of the things we have to think about. Is Kevin O'Connell a guy that can adapt and use players like CJ Ham in a different way than the
Yep.
traditional, all right, you're going to be in the backfield, you're going to blow up the middle linebacker, and Dalvin Cook's going to get 3 yards. Like, I don't know.
That
Just a
that is
thought.
fair because I mean, the number 2 tight end now is who? Johnny Munt. So it's not like doesn't seem like they're
Johnny
investing a whole
freaking Munt.
yeah, it doesn't seem like they're investing a whole lot in the tight ends or the fullbacks anyways, so, like, it's just you still need guys to fill roster spots, so maybe CJ Ham is kinda safe, but I just I look at the majority of teams in the league right now, like, regardless of what even the Rams did, and, like, not a whole lot of teams use a fullback anymore, like, the Ravens, the the 49ers, like, there aren't a lot.
Hey,
It's
Braun Breaker was a Ravens fullback.
he
So I mean, we
was?
shouldn't crap on him too much. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
he
didn't know that.
was. I can't think of the actual Steiner name because he's Rick Steiner's son. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
he
That's
yeah,
cool. Um, wasn't th
worthless wrestling trivia.
wa wasn't,
Welcome to the off season.
wasn't Laurinaitis, wasn't his son, one of the Road Warriors, wasn't his son on, like, the Rams or something? Remember that?
Yep, he was
Yeah,
Rams.
that
He
just
might
popped
have
in
been
my head.
somewhere else too, but
Yeah, that
yeah.
popped in my head. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be one of the I think it'll be one of the things to watch, especially when they get onto like the practice field and camp to see like what kind of offenses are running in. It's like, is there really like a spot for CJ Ham? We've spent so much time talking about CJ Ham. It's like this is
Welcome to the off
May
season.
and the off
Welcome to
season.
the
We're
off
talking
season. Yep.
CJ Ham like hot takes right now, man. This is what's going on. All right, let's get out of here.
Yeah. Topic number 3. Let's just move on. Peter King thinks the Vikings could be a sneaky threat to go deep in the playoffs. Now, his big logic had nothing to do with that. He just kind of slipped that in there.
He
But
did.
he was discussing, shocker, the trades the Vikings made in the draft. And this is what he wrote. It comes down to this. The Vikings started the draft with 2 picks in the top 70. By the time day 2 was over, they'd made 4 picks in the top 70. And they were able to, in Adolfo Mensa's words, do more about the basket of problems we were trying to solve than if they sat at 12 and picked Kyle Hamilton. This is just me, but knowing what I know and the alternatives the new GM had, I'd have been disappointed if I just sat and picked. Williams could turn out to be a great receiver and he could torment the Vikings. But if 3 of those 4 players become valued starters over the next 4 to 5 years, it's a win for Minnesota. I agree with that. Like
Mhm.
if 3 out of these 4 guys hit, like we're looking at this going, okay, that was a great trade. And we saw
Mhm.
in that War Room video, Kevin O'Connell looked at Ziggy and said, "Hey, we believe the sweet spot in this draft is from pick 32 to like 70, right?"
Yeah.
So the Vikings did what they wanted to accomplish. I just don't know about this whole. I'll put it this way. I could see the Vikings making a playoff run. Even though Peter King didn't like say why, I could see it happening. But
Did
um
yeah.
I'll let you kind of give your take first and just see what you
Mhm.
think because yeah,
For
overall the Vikings could get in and they could get hot and yeah,
You never know. Yeah, first, did you see them sweating out, Lewis Cine making it to 32?
I
Did you
did.
see that part where they're like Quasey's like, "Oh, well, here we go," and they're like, "The Bengals, who they pick?" The Bengals picked a safety. They're like, "Woo!" But they were stoked that they got seen. Like they had their eyes on him the whole time. So that's good. And they saw that they got more assets, and they still got the guy that they wanted, which is always good. But as far as the Vikings being a sneaky threat to make a deep playoff, it's not impossible. I think you look at the NFC and you have what the Rams, Bucks, and Packers at the top. Then after that, I mean, there's no, like, definitive, like, this is the team that's gonna, like, keep the Vikings out of the playoffs or for making a run, like, they can beat the Eagles, they can beat the Cowboys, They can beat the Saints. They almost beat the Cardinals last year with a team that could have been worse. They can beat the Niners. They can beat I don't any other team really. Like the NFC is not a stacked like conference like the AFC is going to be next year. The AFC is going to be a bloodbath. And the team that's number 8 in the AFC is gonna be like could be like the second best team in the NFC probably next season. Um, so I don't think he's going on a limb here. I also know that Peter King wouldn't say something like this if he didn't truly believe it. And he has been doing this job for a long time. So I respect his opinion on things. And there's a reason why a lot of people read what he writes every week. Um, so it's not impossible to me. I wouldn't put any money on it, but mostly because I just don't like burning my money. Um, but it could happen. I'll just put it at that. It could happen because I just don't think the NFC is very deep next season. That's all.
My Bayern Buxton for MVP bet isn't looking so great when you talk about lighting
Hey,
money on fire,
it's
but
May. It's a long season.
it's plus 1,200 odds. I
Gotta
mean,
go.
that's pretty good to just throw some cash down and see what
What
happens. Or actually,
did
I think I bet it was plus 2,500. So
hey, Fernando Tatis gonna come back soon, so gotta watch out for that. But he's in
is he
the
gonna come riding
NL.
in on his motorcycle or what?
Oh, wow. Had to do that,
Sorry,
huh?
had to go there.
Padres are good
So
without him, though.
I started thinking about this a little bit. And like we're all like, okay, what did the Rams do? What did the Rams do? Like the Rams, because Sean McVay, right?
Mhm.
We even did this last week. We're like, well, how could the Vikings be the Rams next year? But then I started thinking about like other members of the Sean McVay coaching tree. So like the Bengals, right?
Mhm.
Like when the season started, everybody thought the Bengals were going to suck, and then all of a sudden they're in the Super Bowl.
And they
They're,
beat the Vikings.
another second of protection away from Jamar Chase running into the end zone and
Yep.
beating the Rams. But you know, I think the Bengals were a little bit further behind than the Vikings are right now.
Yeah.
And, Kirk Cousins isn't Joe Burrow. I'm sorry to offend the Cousins stands. Like, he's not on the same level. He's good. Like, he's not complete trash, but he's not Joe Burrow. So
I'd
let's
say
throw that
similar
out there right
I'd say
now.
similar skill set, totally different mentality. Just like Joe
Sure.
Burrow. Joe
Yeah.
Burrow's already light years ahead of like the mentality aspect of being a quarterback. Definitely
Physically,
similar
Kirk's,
skills. Yeah. Yeah.
he's a top 5 quarterback physically.
Yeah.
Mentally, I don't know. But, um,
Bottom 5.
Yeah, maybe a little high. Yeah, bottom 5 might not be a stretch.
No?
Um, I think the better example, though, is what Matt LaFleur has done with the Packers
Yeah.
because he was in LA. He went on to be the
Yep.
the Titans offensive coordinator.
Mhm.
And we're just like, who would want to hire the guy who decided to run Dion Lewis over Derrick Henry for half a season? But it's turned out because the Packers underachieved in those 2 final years under Mike McCarthy. There were injuries. Rodgers broke his collarbone in 2017. It just didn't gel the following year, and Aaron
Yep.
Rodgers looked miserable. So, I mean, they bring in a new coach. And I mean, you could kind of see that parallel with the Vikings, where, yeah, Mike Zimmer, better coach than Mike McCarthy. He worked once upon a time, though. Same with McCarthy. He worked, got them a Super Bowl, and that's why he was there so long. Zimmer didn't have the
Yeah.
Super Bowl, but he was a good enough coach to stick around.
And the
So you
miracle.
have this underachieving team, and they also had pieces because you obviously have Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the greatest
Mhm.
running or quarterbacks of all time. You have a strong running game with Aaron Jones. You add AJ Dillon to the mix once LaFleur gets there. You have an elite wide receiver in Devontae Adams, and you
Mhm.
have a elite offensive line, which the Vikings obviously don't have. But I mean, they have. The one thing that they have going for them is their tackles,
Yeah.
Brian O'Neill
Yeah.
and Christian Darrisaw. So that is something that they can lean on and build off of. Once they get the interior figured out, that could be a very good offensive line. Their defense when LaFleur took over was pitiful, though. It was
Mhm.
bad. They had to add Rashawn Gary. They had to add some younger players in there. They had to get some new blood. And that is how I feel the Vikings are very similar. So Matt LaFleur comes in, he wins 13 games in back-to-back seasons. Yeah, he chokes in the playoffs, but there's no reason the Vikings can't do that. I mean, if they draft well, if Lewis Cine makes an impact immediately, if Andrew Booth ascends to a starting spot and can stay healthy, like that team can get elevated. I picked them to win. We both picked them to win 10 wins last week. Maybe they get to 11. Maybe they get to 12. Maybe they win the NFC North. Like we saw with the Bengals. If you get that home game in round one, that's an easy step toward making a playoff run. I think the Packers are the blueprint that the Vikings should follow here. And I'm not surprised if Kevin O'Connell looks at this the same way and goes, we need to be more like the Packers, which makes everybody throw up in their mouth because, oh my God, why would you want to beat Green Bay? Okay, they're a successful organization. They are. So
in
I
the
don't know.
in the regular season recently.
Yeah. But they
So
get there,
so
which
you
is
want to
more
be
than the
yeah,
Vikings have done the
right.
past 2
So
years.
you want to be even better than the Packers.
Yes.
You want to get to their level and then even surpass that, which is a good goal to have.
Mhm.
But yeah, you bring up a lot of good points because the Vikings offense is structured very similarly to how the Packers were when LaFleur arrived. The one glaring difference is the quarterback, because I would
Mhm.
say that Aaron Rodgers is much better in a lot of ways than Kirk Cousins, and that's really important. That's going to make or break, how successful the Vikings are next year. Is Kevin O'Connell going to treat Kirk Cousins more like Jared Goff, or is he going to treat him more like Matthew Stafford? Like that's what we're going to find out next season. And if it's more Jared Goff, then we're going to get a lot more Dalvin Cook, and he's probably going to get hurt. And then we're going to have Alexander Madison. It's going to be stuff we've already seen. But if it's more Matthew Stafford, then it could be a pretty fun year with Irv Smith getting in the mix and Adam Thielen and even what KJ Osborne getting in there. And of course Justin Jefferson. But yeah, I think I would say following the Packers lead. I wouldn't say to do everything that they do. Wasn't Mike Pettin? Wasn't he the defensive coordinator that LaFleur hired?
He
So
was.
he's with the Vikings now. They have Zadarius Smith. So they're just gonna next year, whoever's free for the Packers is gonna resign. The Vikings are gonna sign them, keep bringing them over here, and eventually they'll just have like all their players. And so they'll just be, Aaron Rodgers will eventually come over to the Vikings. He'll have like a Favre-esque run, and then they'll win 13 games and get in the playoffs. But no. But yeah, I think there's reason to be optimistic about the Vikings. There's also reason to have plenty of concern because of the lack of changes we've talked about so many times that they have not made this offseason. It's a lot of the same, and the Vikings are banking on their coaching staff and training staff to be what makes a difference. And sometimes it does, but a lot of time, and sometimes, or I'm just curious to see like how many times that has happened with a rookie head coach because I feel like it's not very often. Because you talked about Zach Taylor and the Bengals were terrible his first year uh, and his second year. But you talk about Matt LaFleur, and the Packers were really good his first year. Sean McVay, the Rams were really good his first year. So it just depends. There's just a lot of unknown, and like I feel like we won't really know until November how good this Vikings team really is. Because I feel like unless they start like 0-3 or 0-4, we're really not gonna we're really just not gonna know. So it's gonna be I'm excited. Like I'm still excited about the season,
Mhm.
but I really don't know what to expect because we don't know.
And I think it makes it more fun that the Vikings are opening up against the Packers because of that. I mean,
Right.
I don't really like the fact that they're going to play them right away with everybody kind of needing to adjust to that new system. But
Yep.
I also feel like, that's an added element. Like if Kevin O'Connell beats the Packers in his first game, like there are going to be people that are going to want to build a statue outside of US Bank Stadium. Just, hey, but
Didn't they get blown
I
out?
don't know.
Didn't the Packers get blown out in week 1 last year? They played the
They
Saints in like
did.
Jacksonville.
I was gonna say it was the Jaguars, but you're right. It was the Saints playing in
Yeah. It
Jacksonville
was
because of
like
a
38 to
hurricane.
7. And everyone's like, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers, he's too focused on all the other stuff. He's not focused, and then he won MVP again. So
He went to what?
week one is always so ridiculous. Like with the games, like it's just so stupid. I think the Jaguars won like 2 years ago. Was it like 2020? They won their game in week one, and then they lost like the next 15. So like week one is just stupid. But yeah, I'm excited about next season. I'm gonna I'm this is what happens. We continue to get more optimistic as time goes by. We get our hopes up, and then we get let down. It's just this natural
And
cycle.
reality slaps us in the face.
And then sometimes we have
That
seasons
was a
like
punch, but whatever.
2017. Like here's a way to look at it too, where people will be like, "Oh, the Vikings aren't going to be that good." Like, okay, 98. How many people thought the Vikings were
Yeah,
going to go on their run? Nobody. No.
2017.
Yeah,
I remember it
2017.
well.
Bradford goes down.
I
Peterson goes down. How many people
I
thought that
got
was going to happen?
tickets to the opener for $50 because people were just. It was a Monday night and people didn't want to go.
Packers.
So,
Packers, right?
huh.
Oh, no, that was the
Saints.
Saints. Saints. I'm thinking the
Sam Bradford
2016
game.
when Bradford came over. But yeah, 2017 against Adrian Peterson and the Saints. But yeah, you just got to look at it like you just never know. I don't like taking that approach all the time because I'd rather have them just be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
But you have those seasons, or like the Bengals last year. People thought they would be better, but no one thought they were going to the Super Bowl. No one thought they were going to beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, but they did. So you never know.
And that's why they play the games. So that's all the time we have for the Viking Age podcast tonight. We're here every Monday and Thursday night, right here at 6:15 p.m. Central Time on our YouTube channel. For Adam Patrick, I am Chris Schad, and we will see you Thursday night.